Hello, welcome back to my channel. I am back with my cat Pointer to talk to you today about the 3 stages of growth. We have a new setup today with the projector. The weird thing about a projector is the projector likes it dark, and to see me, you'd want it light. So it's a little bit of a situation here, but hopefully it's okay. Now, this video is for everyone, but is especially for people who are maybe they're feeling overwhelmed in life, feeling like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I'm feeling just behind. Everyone else seems to be ahead of me. I just feel like I'm not growing as fast as other people. I'm not advancing as fast as other people. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a new perspective that you are not behind. You are right on time. And these stages are cyclical. So if it seems like people are ahead of you right now, just give it some time and there will be a shift, I promise. And so I'll get into it. I think it'll be really fascinating. I think it'll be really encouraging for you. Oh, and Muffin loves it. So what I want to get into first is the problem. So the way I see it, a lot of times people have some sort of goal of how they want their life to look, and they see themselves at the bottom of a mountain and they want to get to the top of a mountain. And there's like this tree on the mountain and they're climbing up and they're like, oh, look at this tree. And then some time goes on and they're like, wait, I've seen that tree before. And then some more time goes on and they're like, I've seen this tree before. And it just feels like they're like, wait, I'm going in circles. And all of a sudden people have this realization, I just keep going past this same issue. I have the same issue in my life and I'm still just hitting against it and I have not made any progress. But what I want to talk about today is that you are making progress, even if it feels like you're going an inefficient way around the mountain. It feels like you're going in spirals. You are spiraling up. The first time you saw the tree, maybe you were below it and you're kind of spiraling around the tree and then you're next to it and you're spiraling around the tree and then you're above it. And so even when it feels like you're not making progress, you're going through the same issues over and over again. You're like, I dealt with these bad emotions before. I dealt with this anxiety. I thought it was done. I thought that this finances thing was figured out and now it's not. And even when you have these situations where you feel like I'm just not making any progress, you actually are. You're just seeing it from a different vantage point. And so what we have is more of like, instead of these 3 distinct stages of growth, it's more like this spiral of growth that you will tend to repeat over and over. You'll go through these stages and then you'll go through these stages again. And so I want to get into what the 3 stages are so you can identify what stage you're at, what your action steps are, and how you'll know when you're done and ready to advance to the next step. So stage 1. Empty your mind of the past. So I'm going to get into what are the characteristics, what are the action steps you need to take, and how to know when you're actually done. So first, let's get into what are the characteristics of this stage 1 of growth. So if you are in stage 1 of growth and you're in need of emptying your mind of the past, here are some of the characteristics. Maybe you're feeling emotionally tumultuous. This could be more anxious or depressed than normal. It could be more angry, more irritable, more confused. It can feel like maybe you feel like you have a lot of needs and you feel like no one can meet them. Just maybe relationships are not going well, work is not going well. Everything just feels overwhelming. And so I think that's a really key thing here is feeling overwhelmed with the weight of it. Projecting is another big piece, no pun intended with this whole projector situation here. But the big thing is distracting yourself with things that you can't control, because the things that are going on in your life might feel so overwhelming that it's just honestly easier to focus and stress about these things that you can't control. Because if you were to actually spend your time thinking about the things you can control, that feels like an overwhelming amount of work. When I think back to times that I've been in this phase, sometimes it just feels like sometimes I'll find myself being angry about other people, like when you're in the shower, you're just like having fake arguments with people. It could be distracting yourself with things. I think for me, a big thing that I would distract myself with is politics, because it was easy to get angry and worked up about something that is admittedly very important, but me getting worked up about it is not the same thing as me having a meaningful impact in that realm. But what it did do is it sufficiently distracted me and gave me an emotional outlet for things that I actually could control. So I want to get into, if you're feeling like this and there needs to be this emptying of the past, what are the action steps? So the action steps are just as it sounds. This step is about emptying and letting go of the past. So these could be like, here's some ideas, including but not limited to therapy, journaling, forgiving others and yourself. I think sometimes forgiving ourselves for mistakes we made in the past is the biggest thing that prevents us from moving on into the future. Confronting and facing like the dirt that's going on, like caused by you, caused by other people. Getting really selective about your relationships. I think something that I always thought about growing up that is, I think it's a Stephen Covey quote, but it's like you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And getting really selective when you're at this very vulnerable vulnerable place, you're doing some excavation of the past, it's really important to be around people whose lives you want to emulate in some way. You feel that they're better than you in some way, and in a lot of ways. This could be a good time to learn about attachment styles, for example, just really digging into the past, your triggers, your weaknesses. So it's really all about emptying and letting go of the past so that we're not carrying it into the present. Because if we do not actually sufficiently do this work, whether we want to or not, we will be carrying it into the present, whether it's trauma affecting how we see others, how we think others see us, how we see ourselves. And so we're projecting how we see ourselves onto other people. So then we're showing up differently and acting differently. Just in a myriad of ways, it is a heavy weight, and it's like this 20-pound ball that we're just packing around next to us. And so no wonder life feels overwhelming, because we're packing around more than we should be. So what we should do is really just sit down and take some time to dive into the negative emotions. It's really not fun. This is probably the least fun out of all the phases. But if you skip it, you're shortchanging yourself, and then you're robbing yourself of the fun aspects in the future. So how do we know when we've sufficiently done this? Because there's just so much dirt in the past, you could theoretically just process your past forever. So how do you know when you have sufficiently done this? So you will know you are ready to move out of the emptying yourself of the past phase and onto the next when you are relatively neutral toward the past. Instead of thinking back at the past really negatively, you can just look back and say, that doesn't really affect me that much. That thing that used to really anger me, I've talked it out. I've talked it out with people. I've processed it, made my thoughts about it, got affirmation from people, gotten around good people, and I'm just feeling pretty good about it. I'm not feeling so bad anymore. And it's the point of neutrality where you don't feel the need to talk about it all the time. Before it's been processed, you have a need to get it out and to express it. And so you need to express it. You definitely do. But you will know you've expressed it enough when you don't have that desire anymore to keep expressing it. And then finally, you have a healthy self-awareness of your negative traits, your triggers, your weaknesses, and your patterns. Because before we've sufficiently gone through this step, we view the opposite. Instead of having a neutral view of the past, we have a very negative view of the past. And we might overly aggrandize ourselves, blaming others and aggrandizing ourselves, seeing all of our positive traits, all of our strengths, feeling very sorry for ourselves, which a lot of times we do have genuine things to feel sad about. And that's why we need to confront it in a healthy way. So we need to get to the point where instead we're neutral toward the past, and we can really take a look at ourselves and have some self-awareness. You know what? These are my patterns. I notice that when I get bored, I tend to just up and leave. I don't stick with things very much. These are just examples, but I notice when I get upset, I just kind of shut down. I notice I tend to avoid conflict. And so you get to this point where you have a self-awareness and also then a desire to develop these things to the point where you're actively noticing them in your day-to-day life, not just in theory, but actually practically you see yourself doing these things and then you can change it in the moment. Or I notice that I constantly feel like people are talking down to me. And is it really the case that so many people are talking down to me? Or do I have an insecurity about being perceived as smart? So just in all these ways, there's just tons of little ways that we show up to relationships that's actually the past talking and it's not really the present. So once it's all processed, then you know you're ready to move on to stage 2. And stage 2 is about filling up your mind in the present. So I want to get into the characteristics, action steps, and how you'll know when you're done. So once you have emptied yourself of all this overwhelming stuff that has happened, you will feel a sense of space. You might even feel bored, kind of in a good way. You're like, you know what? I used to be really preoccupied with all this negative stuff, and now I just feel all this space. And now it's kind of making me wonder, like I'm getting some curiosity back, and then you become ready to learn and try new things. But in the previous step, that was just too overwhelming because every little thing, when you're overwhelmed, when you're getting triggered, when you're projecting, every little thing feels 10 times heavier than it actually is. But now that that weight is gone, you actually have room to say, what do I like? What are my hobbies? How can I fill up the present in a way that I am really enjoying? So the action steps during this phase are an example. You could read to really learn. I think we've got, when you get to the point where you're emptied out, then you want to get like poured in with stuff that you're interested in. What do I like? What do I like to learn? This is the phase to really develop yourself by learning. This is a great time to get mentors. I put in here learn about cognitive functions because I have a bunch of videos on that. And seriously, I was thinking about one of the first times I was in this phase. It completely changed my life, cognitive functions. It looks like it's about Myers-Briggs, but it's actually about cognitive functions if you haven't seen any of those videos. Learn what you like, create stable routines, try new hobbies, get some more friends. This is a way to make your life feel full. in the present, like to feel well-rounded, feeling like, I know this is how I like to do my mornings. This is how I like to do my evenings. I think like when I was first going through this, it's like I had spent a lot of my mornings just crying or being depressed. So then when I got to this phase, it was like, oh, what do you do with your mornings when you're actually feeling good? And I am so big on, actually, I haven't really talked about this much on the channel, but actually getting mentors. And I specifically mean people whose life you want your life to be like. You don't want to take advice from people who are not at a place where you want to go eventually. But if there are people that you have kind of a, like, I don't know what you call, like a healthy jealousy, like you see them and you're like, I like the way your relationships are. I like the way you've handled your job. I like the way this is. There was a point in time, I think I had gone through a lot of therapy. I'd gone through a lot of years. And then when I got into this phase, I think there was one time where I had 4 different mentors. It was like in career, relationships. It was like in all these different things. And I really just, it's kind of skyrocketed growth at that point. But it has to be from people whose life you actually want to have and you actually respect. But it's basically having the humility to say, I actually don't know much. You know what? I've been spending this time just being emotionally tumultuous, and now I'm kind of this blank slate. And what do I want to be written on this blank slate? I'm just going to learn and consume and be a sponge and just learn from all these people. So you will know you're done when the present is stable and legitimately fun, and the future seems promising. You don't know what the future holds, but when you look to the future now, you're thinking, this could be good. The present's good, so maybe the future is going to be good. And you've done self-development. You've put in actual work, because in the first step, it was all about self-awareness. You know, what are my weaknesses? But in this phase, it's a lot about, okay, I'm going to develop those weaknesses, but I'm also going to look into what the strengths are. I love this quote. It was, at work, you should focus on your strengths, and at home and in relationships, you should focus on your weaknesses. And I don't think that's true 100% of the time, but I think of different systems like StrengthsFinder, maybe you've heard of it. Those work really well when you're in a job. And if you're not good with people skills, you know, you can just be an engineer in the back and that's fine. And someone else will be front of the house who's good with people skills. But in relationships, you don't have multiple coworkers to delegate things to. If you have poor communication skills, there's not another employee picking up the slack. And so in relationships, it tends to be the weaknesses that are really eroding relationships. So when you've found out what those are and then really worked on them and put in some development time and then started to focus on your strengths, that's when life just starts blooming. Because the weaknesses aren't just blaring. There is a point when your weaknesses are so loud that they are so blaring that they have to get addressed before you focus on your strengths. And then when you get to this stage, you can focus on your strengths. You can develop your strengths. You've spent some time working on your weaknesses. Now you can spend some time developing your strengths. And life just feels like it's starting to bloom all of a sudden. This is when like the zest for life comes in. The present is genuinely enjoyable. You have good friends. You have good hobbies. You feel like there's a general well-roundedness in your life. So then we get into stage 3, which is using your mind to create an exciting future. I've been using this framework, Empty, Fill, Use, which is a framework, I think it was Dan Coe I originally heard this from. So I'm kind of using this here, but it's then you can then be creative. Then you can then step into kind of leadership. You got poured into by mentors. You really spent some time working on yourself, kind of humbling yourself. And then you can get kind of in this phase of like promotion. So the characteristics of being at the beginning of stage 3 are your dreams are starting to come alive. If you were at stage 1, you were too overwhelmed to really be thinking about your dreams. At stage 2, you're just having so much fun that you don't even really think, I don't really need to like have mission or vision. You're just having fun. You're like, I didn't know what I liked and now I know what I like. Maybe there's a nudge that won't go away. You're like, I really have been thinking about writing a music album for a while. I've been thinking about writing this book for a while. And it's this passion project that feels like it brings mission and value and purpose to your life. And you start feeling like maybe that's missing. You start getting ideas. What if I did this? And maybe you start feeling like you want to make a change. Like things got stable enough. And now you're feeling like, what if I did something crazy? I've been really feeling like I want to move to Spain. What if I move to Spain? I've been feeling like I want to write this book. I've been feeling like I want to start getting better at singing. I don't think I'm very good at it right now, but I just keep feeling this nudge, so I want to do it. So the action steps during this are you need to take actual tangible steps to create the future. So this is doing exercises about designing your life, creating a life blueprint, seeing yourself as the architect where you are creating the future. In stage 1, things are just too reactive, too behind the 8 ball, like you just can't even think about designing a future because you're hardly surviving the present, you're living in the past. When you get to the present, sometimes there's still some stability that needs to be worked out, the neutrality, but then here you can go proactive. You're like able to go above and beyond. So you can set goals, make a long-range plan, take action. So if you are at this phase in particular is what I designed the potential planner for. Like if you haven't seen it, it's going to be on sale for just briefly over the quarter. But it's all about the front has like 20 pages of just designing your dream life and getting in touch with that and chunking it down and trying to make it tangible and specific. Because I think a lot of people know what they want to do, but they feel like I just don't know, like, what's my tangible next step? I don't know about the practical stuff. I'm like a dreamer, but I don't know about the practical stuff. And so this is exactly what that's for. And the planner carries all the way through so that every day you know what your one action step is for the day, because it just chunks it down. It makes it so easy. I've gotten such great feedback about people that they wrote 3 music albums, wrote a book. I mean, the feedback of the projects people have completed just makes my heart so happy. So then the question is, how do you know when you're done? This is the question. So you'll know you've done when you've implemented the plan and you've gotten good feedback of the impact. You wrote the book, you did the music, you started the YouTube channel, whatever the thing is, what you feel like your mission is, you've gotten good feedback. And then, this is the sad point about, if you remember the cycle I was talking about, and then you realize that what got you there won't get you farther. There's this momentum, you're doing great, maybe you have a business, it's doing well, that lasts for a while. But the thing about the past is it is always growing. It's not just when you turn 18, we process all that past, but then you get older, you're 25, and now there's 5 more years of past that need to be processed. And then you're 30, and there's more years of past that need to be processed. So the thing about the past is it always grows. And so what that means is we start another lap around the stages. You might find yourself, you're in your business, and then you're getting irritable again. You find yourself, you're like, I thought I dealt with this. I used to be very angry, and then I made all this work, and my life was going great, and now I'm angry a lot all the time. Or I thought I dealt with like this depression, and now I'm teary again. I'm overwhelmed again. I got to the point where I could handle the busyness, and now it's too much, and I just feel like the weight is all on me. And that is the invitation to go back to stage 1 again. And it might feel like, oh no, I'm passing the same tree again. I already passed this tree. I don't want to be passing this tree again. But this time, you did stage 1, you did stage 2, you did stage 3. And this time when you're at stage 1, you're viewing that tree from a much higher vantage point, and you know a lot more. And the good news is that they get shorter and shorter and shorter. You don't have 18 years of the past to process this next time. You only have a few years. There's only a few things that have happened, a few things that have made you angry. And it's not the whole world you have to come to terms with this next second time. It's only the last few things that happen in your life. And so this is just a challenge to everyone to see growth as just this long-term process. I think when I was in my early 20s, I thought, okay, I'm just going to go through the stage of healing. I'm just going to do that for a little bit, and then we'll be done. But as time has gone on, I've realized how cyclical it is if you're keeping up a good like emotional hygiene routine, essentially, so that you can be productive. And it doesn't mean if you get back to your reset to stage 1, it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. It means that you advance to that level, and that it's that stage 1 where you dig deep and you get this level of healing that will catapult you into the best outcome for stage 3. I think a lot of times about the analogy of like a bow and arrow. And what stage 1 is pulling back that bow and arrow. And if you want that bow and arrow, if you want the arrow to fly far and fast, the measure of how far and fast it's going to go is how far it's pulled back. So the amount that you allow yourself in stage 1 to be pulled back, dig into the dirt, really confront it, really see yourself as you are, then you can really let that arrow fly. And when you get into stage 3, then the whole world is going to see who you really are. And they're going to really respect you because they will be able to tell all of the work that you've done, because it's not to be taken lightly. All of that stage 1 work, digging into the emotions, the emotional work, like that is not to be taken lightly. That is a huge accomplishment. I think we get a lot of recognition in stage 3, but I think we should get more recognition in stage 1 because that's where all the hard stuff happens. So be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself. Don't expect yourself to be at a stage that you're not at already. Don't try to rush it. Sometimes growth just happens naturally, and you'll get there when you get there. It'll be great. So I do have for the next couple week Calendly sessions open. If you are interested in that, I will have that linked in the description, as well as the potential planner will be linked in the description. It's on sale for the next week or so. If you have a book you want to write, you have a music album you want to make, like any sort of creative project, you're in stage 3 and you are ready to really make a change, this will be really powerful for you. So thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.